In our previous episode, we left Sarah standing in the heavy, cold silence of her bedroom. Her husband, Mark, was folding his shirts and packing his bags. After 15 years of marriage, they had reached a breaking point. Not because of a dramatic betrayal, and not because the love had vanished. They were separating because of an invisible, slow-acting poison known in psychology as the righteousness trap. The obsessive, subconscious need to always be the person who is correct. But before the suitcase was finally zipped, the story took an unexpected turn. Mark left his old laptop open on the kitchen table. Her hands shaking, Sarah sat down and opened a file she had never seen before. She expected to find evidence of a secret life. Instead, she found something much deeper, and much more painful. It wasn't a document of betrayal. It was a manual of emotional exhaustion. The file was a digital journal that Mark had been keeping for nearly 3 years. As Sarah scrolled through the pages, the sentences felt like physical blows. Mark hadn't written about wanting to leave, or about finding someone else. He had documented the exact moments he felt his wife disappearing behind a wall of logic. In one entry from a year ago, he wrote, "Today, we argued about the kitchen budget again. Sarah spent 2 hours with spreadsheets, past receipts, and flawless arguments, proving why my ideas were impractical. She was entirely correct. Her numbers were perfect. She won the debate, as she always does. But as I sat there, listening to her flawless logic, I realized something terrifying. Every time she wins an argument, I lose a wife. I don't want to fight to be heard in my own home. I am tired of being treated like a defendant on trial." Another entry read, "She remembers every mistake I made 5 years ago and presents it like evidence in a courtroom. I know I am flawed. I know I make errors. But when your partner acts like a prosecutor, you stop trying to be close. You just try to survive. Tonight, I chose silence. Not because I agree, but because I am empty." Sarah sat in the dim light of the kitchen, the screen illuminating her tears. She finally saw the devastating truth. For years, she believed they were simply having healthy, intellectual debates. She thought her sharp memory and eloquence were helping them find the right solutions. In reality, she was using correctness as a weapon. She was so focused on being right about the details that she became completely blind to her partner's emotional reality. She won the arguments, but she was bankrupting the relationship. Let us step away from Sarah and Mark's kitchen for a moment and look into the deeper laboratory of human behavior. Why do we do this? Why do so many well-educated, intelligent, and loving people fall into the righteousness trap? Why do we value being correct more than being connected? Psychology suggests that the obsession with being right is almost never about the actual facts of the argument. It is a powerful, subconscious defense mechanism designed to protect the ego from its deepest fear, the fear of vulnerability. To the primitive parts of our brain, admitting that we are wrong feels like a threat to our status, our safety, and our worthiness. If I admit a mistake, it means I am flawed. If I am flawed, I might be criticized, rejected, or abandoned. Therefore, being right becomes a psychological shield. We tell ourselves, if I can prove my logic is flawless, I am in control. If I am correct, I am safe. But here is the hard truth that a mature mind must eventually accept: in any close relationship, whether it is a marriage, a deep friendship, or a bond between parent and child, there is no such thing as one person winning. The structure of a relationship is a single organism. If one partner wins an argument and the other walks away feeling defeated, dismissed, or humiliated, both partners have lost. When you enter an argument with the goal of proving your correctness, your entire perspective shifts. You move from a mindset of us against the problem to a mindset of me against you. You stop listening to understand, you begin listening to find flaws in the other person's testimony. You analyze their tone of voice, you dissect their word choice, and you dig up past history just to strengthen your case. But a relationship is not a courtroom. A courtroom is a place designed for judgment, sentencing, and punishment. Intimacy, trust, and love cannot grow in a place where one person is constantly placed on trial. When Sarah closed the laptop, she walked back upstairs. Mark was standing by the door, his suitcase in hand. The old Sarah, the one driven by the need for self-defense, already had a logical argument prepared. Her ego wanted to say, "So you're just going to abandon your family because of a disagreement? You're being completely unfair." She wanted to win the final trial. But looking at the empty space in the closet, the reality of losing the person she loved finally became larger than her need to protect her pride. She stepped into his path, looked into his exhausted eyes, and did something that felt completely unnatural to her ego. She dropped her weapons. She didn't defend her actions. She didn't explain her intentions. She simply whispered, "I am so sorry. I read your journal. You are right. I have been fighting to win arguments, instead of fighting for us. And I don't want to win anymore if it means losing you." Mark froze. He hadn't heard those words from her in over a decade. Admitting fault is often misunderstood as an act of weakness or submission. In reality, it is the ultimate demonstration of emotional intelligence. It is the only force capable of dismantling a defensive wall. When Sarah dropped her guard, Mark no longer needed his shield. He set the suitcase down. It didn't fix 15 years of silent resentment in a single evening. One conversation cannot heal a long-term emotional distance. But it achieved something more important: it stopped the bleeding. They agreed to begin professional therapy, shifting their focus from proving who was wrong to learning how to make each other feel safe again. As we conclude this case study, let us reflect on the universal lesson hidden within this story. This dynamic does not just happen in marriages. It happens in our workplaces, within our families, and between our closest friends. The next time you feel that familiar, burning urge to correct someone, to win a trivial debate, or to prove that your memory of an event is the absolute truth, take a breath. Step away from the judge's bench. Ask yourself a difficult, uncomfortable question: what am I actually fighting for in this moment? Am I fighting to protect my fragile ego, or am I fighting to sustain this connection? In the grand scheme of human life, our time is too short and our relationships are too fragile to be wasted on the sterile victory of being correct. It is a lonely experience to stand at the top of an argument, completely right, but completely alone. Choose understanding over judgment. Choose peace over victory. Because it is always infinitely better to be connected than to be correct. Thank you for joining us today at the Hearts and Minds Lab. If this exploration brought value to your life, or made you look at your own interactions differently, please leave a comment below. We read every reflection. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. In our next session, we will examine another silent threat to modern relationships: the psychology of financial infidelity, and how hidden financial secrets destroy trust even in the strongest bonds. Until next time, protect your heart, and keep opening your mind.